Okay, there we go. All right, so y'all got a different invite. This is just a regular Teams meeting, but everybody's been muted. I mentioned before that Teams Live was being taken away eventually, and we had to do Teams Town Hall, and we tried to get that set up, and there were some issues with the Q&A option. So I wanted to make sure that y'all had the ability to ask questions. So we decided to go ahead and go with a regular Teams meeting, but you are muted. So I ask that any questions you do have, just drop them in the chat. We'll respond to them like I did on the live meetings at the end. But anyhow, so thank you all for being here to enjoy another Huddle. So I will jump right in. I don't anticipate it being the whole hour. This is more of a review on a handful of things that we've discussed before, and just a run through of the informal boilerplates. But what we're going to do is I'll run through the informal boilerplates so y'all can just get an idea of what those are going to look like. I'll do a review of the final boilerplates. I might just worry about one because ultimately there wasn't really anything changed from what I presented to y'all before. It's now available to all of y'all. The biggest thing is just understanding, like, we did plug in the new general terms and conditions as attachment A, all that. I'll touch on that. Then I'm going to cover vendor onboarding. This is something that we've had sitting in the background for a while now, but we had to reprioritize things. So we want to go ahead and push this out. We feel like it's a good timing in regards to the beginning of the fiscal year. So we want to push this out and give it to y'all as a resource. And then for the knowledge nugget, I'm going to touch on the contract closeout packets again. So reviewing the boilerplates, just for informals, it's in the final stages. There are a couple of things that we're still ironing out, more specifically on the small purchase boilerplate. So I'm just going to review what they're going to look like for you. They should be posted within the next couple of weeks because we still need OCA review after we iron out these last couple of things. So the mini is done. The small purchase is where we're hung up on something. Then as for the informals, like I said, those have been finalized. Those have been posted along with the guides that came with them. So please, I'm interested in your feedback if you've started using them. I've heard a couple of things that it seems like, it seems as though it's been helpful. I do know that there have been a couple of things that we've had to address. I think there was like a numbering issue on one section or something, so we had to address that. But other than that, please let us know. We're interested in hearing your feedback. And also, if you do run across any issues, because we're not perfect, and I said from the get-go, I'm sure there's something that may end up being off with formatting, or we may have missed, or whatever, please just let us know because we can obviously make changes and update them and get them squared away. So I'm going to drop from this slideshow. I've been talking to y'all and I'm not sharing my screen. Just realized that. You see, this is what happens when you're using a new platform or a new approach, and I'm not used to that right now. So let's go back to trying this again. I just went over my topics. That's where I was at with that. This was what I was reading from in regards to the informals and formals. And so I'm going to drop from this and open up. Give me a second. All right. So informals. This is the mini informal. This is the one that I was saying is done. It's been reviewed by OCA. We're pretty squared away on it. We have this with the guide available, or not available, but we have those done. So we'll make that available as soon as possible. But we're ironing out the small purchase. But you'll see that it's similar to how we're trying to do our formals. We're trying to get that more consistent look. But obviously the informal does have its own quirks to it. But notice of informal, similar to the formals. This brings some very specific information up to the front, gets some stuff out of the way, right? You have your table of contents, the notice for the local small business reserve program, the notification about it having to go out under LSBRP. And then you get to the meat of things again. And again, similar to the formals, we're setting it up the same way. So we have the guide that you can walk through everything, right? We're trying to keep things as consistent as possible. If you see a guide for the formal, you'll see a guide for the informal. They have all of their own information in there as to the specifics for each one. So please go through, utilize this guide to walk you through all the different steps, right? So we give you like general information at the front end of the guide, all the information about how it's local small business, etc. But then when it comes to, getting into the scope of work and everything, you can walk through one thing at a time. And that should help you build out your solicitation. So we tried to structure it with similar sections in the similar orders. Again, obviously informals have a little bit of a second. Hold on a second. Yeah, no, I've got the mini. Trying to pay attention. I have the mini boilerplate up, and I have the mini guide up. That's what I was showing. Yeah. Anyhow, so it's we try to put it in the same order. So again, familiarity, as y'all get used to these new ones, you should you'll get used to it, and it'll be like the back of your hand. Okay, the next section will be, and the next section will be, and the next section will be, and it should be that way across the board. But you have all your award submission information, everything. So this is the mini solicitation, the mini solicitation. So we put in something in here as a holding spot for your evaluation criteria. Something that has come up in regards to, and again, we have all of the details in here to walk you through those different steps. But I will say from the formals when they've gone out, something that has come up is question about the evaluation criteria and what's in there and everything. Understand, y'all need to customize this stuff to what you need, right? So what we have in there are things that you need to consider. Some stuff, especially in the formals, where you have the MFD points and stuff like that, that needs to stay. But if you have specifics that you need to make tweaks to for evaluation criteria based upon your need, then do that. You just have to think through it. Again, use the guide, because we put stuff like that in there that says think through the key elements that you have to take into consideration for the purpose of your solicitation and all that. So, but we do drop something in here, so it's there. And again, we cover all similar stuff. So you should be familiar with it. Again, content is all the same. It's just organized in a different manner to kind of reprioritize how it's being presented. We've got all the typical stuff in there. You'll see that, again, attachment A, just like in the formals, the informals will have attachment A as the general terms and conditions. That should be across the board for everything. So these are the updated general terms and conditions. We've dropped them in. And right, and then you'll see attachment B, an acknowledgement page similar to the RFP. Any acknowledgement for amendments, the reference attachment, and then an area for the insurance requirements and pricing. And then, of course, we ended out with the link for any of the forms and information that the vendors will need. So, again, just showing it to you we'll get this posted as soon as we can. We want to try to finish up the small purchase and then post them both together, but it will come with a guide. Each of them will come with a guide. Both the small purchase and the mini will have their own guides, just to be able to reference it in the manner in which you need to look at the differences between the two. But the small purchase, this is, again, we're still working on a couple of things for this, but we pull the main information up to the front, and then it runs through the same breakdown, basically, with the exception of any language changes that needs to be considered for, that small purchase IFB route versus the evaluation criteria and stuff like that. So hopefully we will be providing you again another good resource that could be helpful to you. We'll get it out as soon as possible. I'll send an email out like I did on the last one when we got the formals posted, just to let you know. All right, so now let me pull up the formal. Again, this is just to run through it. This is everything that you saw before. All of this, it's posted now. I believe we haven't heard anything about any of these different items where you have to choose an item and add information being an issue. If you run across something, please let us know so we can update it as soon as possible. But it's still the same rundown. You got your local small business information at the front, your bid and contract award page squared away at the front, and then again, just like in the informals, all of it's going to be in the same order. And then at the back end of it is where we ended up putting the attachment for general terms and conditions. These are the final ones. I will say about the general terms and conditions, one thing is we worked with OCA and they made sure that this was available because this is pertinent to the majority of our solicitations and contracts. There are two other terms and conditions being worked on, one for SaaS, the software stuff, and one for construction. There are some other tweaks that they're trying to make to those. So if you have a solicitation or trying to get a contract put together that involves either one of those, work with OCA to make sure the legal language that needed to be changed is updated, but they don't have a final version yet of those two types of terms and conditions. So they will make sure that you have what you need in there. But for everything else, and the formals, informals that are formals, informals that are not SaaS or construction related, we'll have the regular general terms and conditions, and these are final and updated in all of the boilerplates. But so those were dropped in there, and yeah, that's it. I mean, like I said before, this was a daunting task. It doesn't surprise me why it hasn't been done in a while, because it's a lot to figure out. But thank you all for being patient with us to get it done. Thank you for any feedback that you've given. If you have been part of the development process of them, of us picking your brain or helping with formatting or whatever the case may be, greatly appreciated. I really hope that it is being rolled out to y'all and is helpful to you, because ultimately the main goal was not just to make sure we're in alignment with any legal requirements, but doing the whole overhaul. One of the biggest points of it was make it easier, more efficient, and bring priority to certain stuff. So interested to know y'all's feedback. Okay, so let me jump back to this. All right, so we're going to jump over to the vendor onboarding guide. I'll show you the guide in a minute, but I'm going to just touch base on what this is and the purpose of it first. So right now, I know across the board, everybody does stuff differently and how they interact with their vendors, etc. But if we, our office, can provide some sort of guidance to y'all on best practices, how you should consider engaging with vendors, etc., then we're going to do that. And something that we felt would be a helpful guide in order to get people on a more consistent communication level, but more of like a kind of just build it into your process would be helpful, is doing an onboarding. And it has 5 key elements to it that we've developed. And so when I get to the guide, I can walk through it a little bit more. But ultimately, the reason for this is setting expectations from the get-go. It will help you hold a better contract, monitor a better contract, be on the same page with the vendor, etc. So if you do an onboarding with a vendor, then you can get a lot of stuff out of the way proactively than to run across stuff as it happens and then be like, I don't know, what should we do? Or who's responsible for that? Or how do we figure that out? All that type of stuff. So, it's going to give you faster time to value after award. It means that they'll be able to jump in there and start meeting the expectations with no questions. Everything's ironed out, etc. You'll get higher quality deliverables and hopefully fewer disputes because you would have already gone over the expectations for the key elements of the contracts, whether that be on the administrative side of things or on the operational side of things. Stronger compliance from day one. Again, if you proactively address, hey, these are the areas we see as risks, let's handle them this way or however, then you can make sure that it's taken care of, and that includes any of mentioning to them. Remember, you have MFD stuff, you have LSBRP stuff, like all those types of compliance things need to be taken into consideration. They need to meet those goals because if in the long run they start getting into their contract and our office determines that they're not participating accordingly per their contract and those other compliance, the socioeconomic requirements, then that could cause a problem. Consistent performance rhythm. It's basically getting on the same page, getting a flow with how things are going to run between you and the vendor. So in stage 1 and 2, when you're looking at kickoff readiness and preparation, basically it's in, getting yourself squared away to have the right conversation. So on stage 1, the kickoff readiness planning, that's us, the county, the department, getting it all squared away and getting it together. What do we need to focus on? What is important to us? What do we need to touch base on? This is a construction project, so we need to make sure they're clear on the safety requirements or the MOT requirements or whatever the case may be. Safety reports will be done. And, that's the type of stuff you need to figure out what's important for your contract, whether that be on the administrative side of things, whether that be on the operational side of things. You need to get all of that covered in order to be able to have a thorough discussion with your vendor on what matters, and y'all can get on the same page as to what matters. So that's, confirming vendor master file on the administrative side, establishing the system access or training requirements or whatever the case may be. Say it's a consultant coming in and they need access to certain platforms or whatever. Okay, what type of stuff do they need to have for that? Are you ready to provide that to them? Document any department specific requirements. Again, safety training or whatever, if there are certain type of certifications they need to get, all of that. And then, you can send a vendor welcome package that gives, the basics behind the administrative side of the contract. And if you notice in this list, it even says the executed contract. I can't tell you how many times vendors are like, we never got that. FYI, when we execute a contract and we provide it to the departments, It's the department's responsibility to communicate with their vendor. Here's your contract. So just putting a package together of all of those types of administrative things would be really helpful so that you can say, you've received it. Here's all the pertinent information, the people you need to contact for X, Y, or Z. It's all there, right? So then you jump into stage 2 where it's preparing for the kickoff. And that's just your initial interaction with the vendor. You've got your agenda squared away. You need to schedule it with them, all of that. So just interacting with them and saying, hey, we want to bring everybody together and we want to make sure we start this right. Let's set up a meeting. And here's the information that, these are the topics we're going to talk about. Then you actually get off into the kickoff meeting. Truly, if you have these conversations at the front end, it could make for a very successful contract, again, because you're being proactive and not waiting to react to issues that may come up. So when you're taking this approach, hopefully people, use this, make sure you're not only like just checking off a box and covering surface level stuff. Like if there are very specific things that really matter to us, have the thorough conversation now. Let them ask questions. Make sure everyone's on the same page so it can be ironed out and everybody knows what to do if something comes up with it. But when y'all are both able to leave the meeting and know who's responsible for something, how something will be handled, what's how often are you going to meet about stuff, what's going to happen if there's performance issues, all of that, then you're in a better spot than having to react to it and scrambling for it as it happens. Then you get to stage 4 and 5, where it's the follow-up and the steady state, or kind of like the monitoring of things, right? So the follow-up, this goes back to stuff that you probably heard in the overview of contract administration class, or if you've run across issues with vendors and have had to deal with us and OCA in the past of what are you supposed to do. This is one of those things that could be really helpful to you in a proactive manner. Whether it's this meeting or any other meeting, follow up with meeting notes, meeting minutes, send them out to all the parties that were in attendance. That's your opportunity to put in writing, we had this conversation. These are all the things that we touched on because these are the important things that we need to all be on the same page about. Here's your copy. And if they don't come back and say, no, we don't agree with that, or that's not what was said, or whatever, then that stands. Those are the meeting minutes. Everybody's accepting them. And so 6 months later, if something happens and it's something that you covered, you can say, listen, we explained this in this meeting. Here are the notes. Again, it just sets you up in that proactive manner. But you want to follow up with the meeting minutes. If there's any, if there were any action items from the meeting, try to follow up, make sure all that's ironed out. Give them a package. Again, you should have built that when you're doing your what do we need, what's important, and then you can provide that to them. And then go ahead and schedule the follow-up meetings, right? Like a performance or a performance management meeting or whatever. This is something that you should consider those smaller level meetings on a regular basis. It's good communication. It's consistent communication with the vendor. Different types of services or construction or whatever need them at different variable time frames. Some things for goods, I understand if you're just buying something every now and then, maybe you don't need consistent meetings. You should have a kickoff meeting. So again, you lay out the contract and say, just making sure we see that the delivery schedule is this and whatever. But, make the best judgment call for the type of contract you have that makes sense for how often you touch base. And then the steady state transition is just maintaining that consistency of meetings, communication with the vendor, and your monitoring of the contract and the performance and everything. So those are the different stages. It's something that we're just providing to you as a helpful tool and resource, that if you feel as though you oftentimes run into a scramble during your contracts because, well, this is a really important thing, but how in the world did they miss it on their contract? Well, we can point it out to them at the beginning, and then if they miss it, it is a very obvious, like, we already addressed that, and now this is an issue. So the whole point, start every contract right. And it's not a one-time checklist. Also, what I would say is consider these higher, like broader and higher level meetings at the time of renewal too, right? Like you'll check back in as you're renewing and saying, okay, we've gone through a year. Let's make sure we're still all on the same page. And especially if you've run across performance issues or communication problems. But if you have those little individual, smaller level meetings in between, then you should be on a pretty good spot, like in a pretty good spot with them. I'm going to go to the guideline, so give me a second. But the guideline that I'm about to show you will be posted on the internet site today, so it can already be available to you. Great. So again, same type of look. It has a specific naming convention for it. So it's a vendor onboarding guide, and it goes through the why it matters, how to use it, and all of those stages, all the things you should consider, and this is what we mean from this. Again, we're trying to put as much out there for y'all as possible to help eliminate future issues and make sure everyone's on the same page and starting at the same point. I talked through all of these, so it's just a matter of you jumping in, diving into the details of what we're talking about, the types of things to discuss, and what we mean by all of it. But here's a quick reference onboarding checklist. If you go through the guide and you're like, yep, all makes sense, now let me just have a checklist so I can make sure that at the start of the contract we're able to say, yep, we did that, great, awesome. Hopefully it will be helpful to you. So that's the vendor onboarding. Give me a second. All right. So one thing I wanted to do really quick is just show you on here. You'll see where we have all the new stuff posted, the solicitation planning guide, all the boilerplates up front. The guides are to the right side of it. And then as we have all of the stuff we're adding, you'll see a build out on the top part of what it is, right? So pro forms, you're going to start seeing them all get populated there as we're able to get them up. Informal boilerplates, again, this will be updated. And then this is still the remainder of everything from the older version that once we get the things final, we'll do the crosswalk to PMND X, Y, and Z is now pro form, blah, 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 and we'll give it to you and there'll be a description and everything. So just right now, this is what this looks like. As we get more stuff turned over and we're able to post it, we're probably going to end up with a little bit of a different look to try to make it more organized and tie it to the colors that we have and stuff like that for the different aspects of the pieces that we've broken down. Okay, so going back to this, not the knowledge nugget is a reminder that the contract closeout packet process was effective July 1, 2026. So all contracts that expire after July 1, 2026, all expiration dates after July 1, need to have a contract closeout package now, completed and submitted to our office, to your procurement specialist. The guide and the template for those can be found on the intranet site, but I went ahead and posted them in this PowerPoint. So when it's posted, you'll have access to it. Yes, it's a new step, but to put a good, pretty bow on a full contract process and documentation, it is really necessary. And so we're doing this to be able to say we have gone from point A to point Z and covered everything of the lifespan of this contract. And we have confirmed everything is done. All invoices are done, all performance is done, all warranty work or whatever the, not warranty work, drawing a blank, but anyhow, any outstanding work is completed, etc. Okay, that's just it benefits all of us to be able to say, yes, we know for a fact and we've confirmed it and we've gone through this checklist and our director knows that it's closed out, all of it. So please make sure that you do this. I will say we're currently working on a more efficient way to help make the submission easier. But until then, just use the packets the way they are, use the forms and templates the way they are, and meet the requirement that we're asking of doing these closeout packets for anything that now expires. We're talking about notifications to y'all on reminders. Y'all get the 3-month, 6-month notification that the contracts are expiring. So we may add something for after contract expiration that just spams you until you respond, basically, to keep knocking on your door that something's outstanding. That's the benefit of automatic emails, right? Y'all will be notified consistently that there's still an outstanding item for a contract if it expires. So please be aware of that. Help us get this done. It benefits all of us to be able to say, yes, we in fact know that everything is covered for this contract and we do not need to worry about it anymore. Upcoming pro huddles and events. Again, on the list for topics is encumbrances and liquidations. And then another thing for the interaction with vendors is the vendor and contract administration scorecard. We have most of that built out already. Again, it was kind of just pushed to the back. So we'll consider doing that in one that's coming up. And then our third Wednesday of every month, we still have our open house for the vendors. Everybody's able to join. It's a Zoom call. So if you want to join, it's on our website. By all means, you can come and listen to what the vendors have questions about. There are different topics for each month. Sometimes there are just general Q&As. It's interesting to hear some of the questions, but you're more than welcome to attend. And so now we're at the Q&A. So I will stop sharing my screen. Can't. So that question was answered. Thank you, Karen. If you have an informal request, please wait until the new ones are out. They should be posted within the next couple of weeks. I think it would just be helpful. We're trying not to have to go back and forth with departments. So if it's something that can wait another couple of weeks, please just hold on to it and help us with that transfer. This is something I'll acknowledge, and I acknowledged it before we even went down the path of putting out the formals, like posting the formals. Absolutely. I know everybody is delayed on stuff right now. That was expected. There's no getting around it. So I do apologize, but it's part of the process in this type of overhaul. So I appreciate everyone's patience. We're trying to make it as painless as possible. People who have had serious issues with it, we've tried to do the best we can to work with you and help get stuff turned over and shifted onto the new boilerplate. But yeah, if you're able to hold on to it and try to get that done before you submit it, that would be greatly appreciated. Again, I know that everything is delayed, whether it be because y'all have to assist with getting it transferred over to the new boilerplates, or whether it's us. Like, everybody's looking at something new too, right? So we're all making sure that we understand what's where now. So part of the process, we're going to get through it. It'll be okay. I appreciate your patience thus far. But yes, hold on to it until you get the new ones. With standardization of solicitation, yeah, sorry, Karen already answered that. So no, informals can't be posted on VidNet. Okay. Can the written proposal and interview evaluation criteria be the same, or should they be different? I'd say the answer to that is it depends on your need. Like, if you need a demo for something in the interview, then you're going to have, you potentially have something that could be different for the interview side of it. Most of them should align, because if their written evaluation gives you answers and you evaluate off of that, but then in the interview you want to continue, okay, let's talk about this a little bit more and make sure that we're all aligned, and it seems as though it's sufficient, then it should stay relatively the same. But if you have like quirky things where you need a demo during the interview or whatever, like, you can't ask for that during a written. So I think it's on a case by case basis if something needs to be shifted or added. So this isn't a across the board answer necessarily. There's a pro form replacing PMD 45 has IFB in the title. Is this to be used with all contracts, or do we just edit out IFB? Other contract types?
We're looking into that, Melissa.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm not sure what that is about. Okay, I answered that question about whether to submit it. We'll take a look, make adjustments. Will Pro accept packets with currently posted templates? Yeah, if you can hold off, that would be appreciated. Has a contract monitoring form required for the closeout package been finalized? I believe so, and I'll look into that and make sure that that is posted. A lot of moving parts, so if something like that is referenced and we haven't posted it yet, thank you for pointing it out, and I will try to make sure that we get that squared away. Let me just make a note of it really quick. Okay. Will we post last month's Pro Huddle? Oof, didn't do that. Yeah, we'll post it. I apologize. That was something I tried to do before I left, but yes, we will get that posted. All right. That's all I have. Told you probably wasn't going to be the full hour. Thank you again for attending. I appreciate it. There's a lot coming at y'all. There's a lot of changes. I understand. I respect any like kind of whirlwind, whiplash type stuff. Again, we're trying our best to make this as painless as possible. Some things were really out of our control. We just had to meet an expectation based upon the laws and stuff that had to change. So, yeah. Oh, thanks the whole pro group for the smooth year end. I will say thank you to y'all because your participation in our request to get things done as soon as possible was very helpful. I do, one thing I will recognize is I know that there is um, confusion and frustration when it comes to the end of year exemption process. Um, I will say there's going to be a conversation about that between now and the end of next year, just because we want to make sure it's as efficient as possible and covered, because that did cause a few delays. It was a frustrating part for us too, because we're at the tail end of that. So I know y'all kept reaching out to us saying, hey, where's this? And we didn't even see it in our queue. It wasn't with us yet. So that's something that we're looking into, to how we can make oh yeah, Patty. Okay, sorry, let me finish my first thought. We're looking into how we can make it more efficient and figure out who needs to be involved in what step, what exactly is needed, when, why, how, all of it. Patty just asked a question: when will the dates for year-end closing be posted for FY27 due dates? That's on me. Trust me, I realized this week when I got back that I had not done that, and I could have thrown something together and put arbitrary dates in there, but y'all know I'm not really the type of person to do that. So I want to make sure I meet with my team and we make sure that the dates are fair and we tie it at a certain spot. So I will have that out to y'all within the next couple of weeks. I just need to meet with my team and make sure that we're all on the same page on the dates, and that they're fair and that it's squared away. I can't just put that together luckily. So I apologize. Good question. Totally on me. Absolutely a thing that slipped my mind. So, all right. That's it for me. Thank y'all again. Enjoy your weekend since we did this on a Friday.